Hey guys, tonight we slow down together. Just you, me, and the soft hum of rain against the window. Before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these quiet nights we share here. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from, and what time it is right now. Now dim the lights, let your breath fall into rhythm with the sound of the rain, and let's drift together into tonight's story. I make my way to English in a kind of fog, moving because I'm supposed to, but feeling half anchored to the floor, the air heavy with the smell of wet paper and chalk. Mason's voice breaks through the haze, sharp but not cruel, calling my name the way a teacher does when patience is starting to wear thin. The sound drags me back, and I realize I've been standing in the doorway too long, a stranger in my own routine. I murmur an apology, my voice catching in my throat, and slide into my seat while the room quietly adjusts around me. The words he's saying blur into noise. I try to focus, to trace meaning in the curve of his handwriting on the board, but the sentences slip away as quickly as they appear. My pen moves anyway, filling the page with lines that mean nothing. When the bell rings, the sound is almost startling. The movement of chairs and voices floods the room like a tide. I collect my things, careful not to meet anyone's eyes. In the hallway, the world feels too loud, too fast, too full of sound that doesn't touch me. Then Mike is there, easy smile and easy energy. His presence like a hand steadying the air. He talks about the weekend, about the beach trip he still hasn't given up on, about the impossible chance that sunlight might find its way here again. I nod and smile when I should, pretending to share his optimism, though I know better. Forks doesn't change. It only cycles through shades of grey. The rest of the morning drifts. Time moves the way fog moves, slowly, invisibly, until you're surrounded. My mind won't stay in one place. It keeps slipping back to that moment, that impossible instant that feels half real and half like something I dreamed. His voice, calm and impossible, the weight of it still echoing in places I can't reach. Maybe I made it all up. Maybe I'm holding on to the shadow of something that never happened. But the memory stays anyway, sharp around the edges, waiting. By the time lunch arrives, I feel untethered, like the day is something happening to someone else. The cafeteria hums with life, chairs scraping, voices rising and falling in waves. Jessica waves me over, her tray already full, her energy so bright it cuts through the dull air. She talks about the dance, about dresses, about who's asked who, her words spilling over each other like she's afraid they'll disappear if she doesn't say them fast enough. I nod along, grateful for her noise. For a few minutes I almost forget what it feels like to overthink breathing. Then she says his name, Edward. It's soft, barely more than a note in her rhythm, but it lands in my chest like a spark. I glance up before I can stop myself. Across the room he's sitting alone, untouched by the motion around him. The light above him seems to bend differently, making everything near him a little quieter. His face is unreadable, but his presence feels like a weight pressing against the air. When his eyes lift to meet mine, the sound of the cafeteria fades, as though someone turned the world down. For a moment it feels like we're the only two people still awake. He tilts his head slightly, that small, knowing gesture that feels both invitation and test. My heart misfires. I don't remember deciding to stand, but I'm already on my feet. Tray in my hands, Jessica's words fading behind me. Each step feels heavier than it should. He doesn't move, doesn't speak, just watches, his gaze steady and patient. The space between us narrows until I can feel the hum of his silence. When I reach his table, he gestures to the empty seat across from him, his movement smooth, deliberate. He tells me I should sit, his tone calm, polite, but faintly amused. I do, the plastic chair cool against my skin, grounding me in this surreal moment. The noise of the cafeteria continues somewhere far away, but it doesn't touch this space. For a long while, neither of us speaks. His eyes move over me the way someone might study a book they already know by heart, as though searching for a line they'd forgotten. The quiet stretches until it starts to hum, Then his voice finally breaks it, low and even, the words wrapped in something I can't name, as he asks if I'm still curious. I nod before I even realize I'm doing it. He exhales softly, almost a sigh, and says that I shouldn't be. The words carry no anger, but they're lined with warning. I ask why, my voice steadier than I feel. He leans forward slightly, elbows resting on the table, his expression thoughtful, eyes sharp. He says that curiosity can be dangerous. The way he says it makes the words feel older than the moment, like he's repeating something he's told himself too many times. I try to laugh it off, but the sound catches in my throat. I tell him maybe I don't mind danger, that maybe I'm already too far in to worry about it. His eyes narrow a fraction, not in irritation, but in something that looks almost like disbelief. He studies me quietly before speaking again. His tone softer now, almost resigned. He asks if I've ever thought that maybe he's not the hero in this story, that maybe he's the one I should be running from. The air feels heavier suddenly, pressing close around the edges of the table. I think for a moment, the answer forming before I can question it, and tell him I don't care. He watches me for a moment that feels longer than it is, and then the corner of his mouth turns upward, just barely, the faintest trace of something that might be humor or surrender or both. The bell rings before I can think of anything else to say, the sound sharp and jarring against the stillness. I stand too quickly, nearly knocking the chair backward, my heart stuttering in my chest. He leans back, his gaze following me, his expression unreadable but softer somehow. As I gather my things, he tells me I should skip biology today, that it would be better if I didn't go. The way he says it isn't playful, isn't teasing. It's the kind of warning that doesn't sound like a choice. I don't answer, only nod once, and turn toward the door. The noise of the hallway rushes in all at once. The fluorescent lights too bright, the sound of footsteps too loud. The world feels strange, tilted, every colour slightly wrong. I keep walking, the echo of his voice threading through my thoughts like a song I can't stop hearing. The hallway feels colder than before, every sound too sharp, every movement too bright. I walk slowly, trying to shake the echo of his words, but they cling to me like the aftertaste of something I shouldn't have swallowed. The rest of the day moves forward whether I'm ready or not. When I step into the biology classroom, the air feels heavier, filled with that faint chemical scent of disinfectant and rain-soaked coats. Mr. Banner stands at the front. Cheerful in that way teachers are when they think they've found a clever lesson plan. The silver gleam of the lancet catches the light as he holds it up between two fingers, his voice explaining how we'll be determining our blood types today. He pricks his own finger as a demonstration, a small dot of red blooming against pale skin. The sight of it hits me wrong, too sudden, too vivid. I tell myself to look away, but my eyes stay fixed on that single drop, impossibly bright under the fluorescent light. A strange heat floods the back of my neck, the edges of my vision starting to blur. I hear Mike say something, his voice distorted, too far away. My chair scrapes the floor, and then everything dissolves into a slow, weightless drift. When the world returns, it's soft and distant. The sounds muffled like I'm underwater. I catch the rhythm of footsteps first, quick and steady, then the low murmur of a voice telling me to breathe. The air feels cool against my face. I try to move, but the ground sways beneath me. Then I realize I'm not standing at all. I'm being carried. My eyes open to see the ceiling moving above me, the flicker of light passing through narrow windows, and the unmistakable scent of rain and something colder, something like snow that hasn't melted yet. His voice comes again, closer now, calm and deliberate, asking if I'm awake. I try to speak, but my throat feels dry, the word lost before it reaches the air. He tells me not to try too hard, that I fainted, that he's taking me to the nurse's office. His tone is almost amused, as though the whole thing has played out exactly as he expected. The nurse's office smells faintly of antiseptic and paper. He lowers me gently onto the cot, his movements precise, his hands sure, The paper crinkles beneath me, loud in the small, quiet space. The nurse looks up from her clipboard, her expression calm and unsurprised. She tells me it happens every year during this lesson, that there's always one. Her voice is brisk but kind. She checks my pulse, asks if I've eaten, offers water. I nod vaguely, still trying to find my balance in the sound of everything. He stands a few feet away, too still, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. The nurse tells him he can go back to class, but he answers before I can even think about it, saying he should stay, that someone should make sure I don't pass out again on the way home. His voice is smooth and certain, a tone that doesn't invite disagreement. The nurse smiles, calling him a gentleman, and returns to her notes. When she steps out to check on the others, the room empties into a silence that feels almost alive. I turn my head slightly and meet his gaze. He's watching me, expression unreadable. I manage a weak laugh, telling him that fainting in class probably wasn't the impression I wanted to make. His lips twitch in response, the faintest shadow of amusement crossing his face. He tells me I scared him, though the way he says it makes it sound less like fear and more like a confession he didn't mean to let slip. He changes the subject before I can respond, mentioning how Mike nearly carried me out before he stepped in. The image makes me groan softly and hide my face in my hands. He laughs, a sound that feels warmer than it should, richer, as though it doesn't quite belong to someone who speaks like marble looks. The sound settles somewhere deep in my chest. The nurse returns with 2 more students, both pale and shaky, the air filling with the quiet shuffle of paper cups and nervous laughter. He steps closer then, the space between us closing without warning. His voice drops low enough that only I can hear. He tells me I should go outside for some air, that it will help. Before I can argue, he adds that he'll take me. There's no room for refusal in his tone, not because it's harsh, but because it feels inevitable, the way rain feels before it falls. The nurse, distracted with the others, nods absently when he says we're stepping out. The corridor outside is cooler, the air easier to breathe. The scent of rain lingers, mixing with the faint metallic smell of lockers and floor polish. We walk side by side, the silence between us stretching comfortably this time. I tell him it wasn't the sight of blood that made me faint, that it's the smell, that tang of iron that always feels too thick in the air. He glances at me, his expression unreadable, and nods as if he understands. Somehow I doubt he could. There's something about the way he moves, the way he breathes, that feels too controlled, too deliberate. The rain outside has softened into mist, visible through the high windows like a thin veil between the world and whatever comes after it. Our footsteps echo softly down the hall. He asks if I'm sure I'm okay, his tone casual but not careless. I tell him I am, that I've embarrassed myself enough for one day. He laughs under his breath, the sound quick and quiet. There's warmth in it, but something else too, something measured. Mike appears at the end of the hall, still looking pale, his worry obvious even from a distance. He asks if I'm okay, if I should still be walking. I tell him I'm fine, even though my knees still feel a little weak. Edward stands beside me, his expression calm, his presence steady but unmistakable. Mike hesitates, offering to walk me to the nurse again, but Edward's voice cuts in before I can answer, smooth and final as he says he's already taking care of it. Mike looks between us, uncertain, then shrugs and walks away. When we're alone again, the air feels heavier. I can hear the faint hum of the lights above us, the quiet rhythm of our steps. He asks if I feel well enough to go to gym, and I tell him I'd rather skip it. His lips curve in what might be a smile, and he says he'll see to it. Inside the office, the receptionist barely looks up when he tells her I'm leaving for the day. His voice carries a quiet authority that makes her nod automatically, handing him a note from my teacher before she realizes what she's done. We step outside, and the world greets us with that familiar wet chill. The rain has returned, but lightly this time, more a whisper than a downpour. The air smells like pine and cold stone. He walks beside me, matching my pace perfectly, his movements effortless, precise. My truck waits a few rows away, its bright orange body dulled by the mist, but he steers me toward his car instead. The silver Volvo sits gleaming under the grey light, impossibly clean against the backdrop of rain. He opens the passenger door, the movement fluid, almost old-fashioned, and gestures for me to sit. The interior smells faintly of leather and something sharper, cooler, like air from a mountain peak. Music plays softly, a piano melody, delicate and distant. Clair de lune, gentle enough to feel like part of the weather. He drives with a kind of grace that doesn't seem learned but natural, every motion precise and quiet, as if the car listens to him rather than the other way around. For a while, neither of us speaks. The windshield wipers move in a steady rhythm, the sound blending with the music, filling the silence between us. I watch the trees blur past, their wet branches catching the light. The forest feels endless, the road a ribbon unwinding into nowhere. He asks if I like the rain. I tell him I didn't, not at first, but that I'm starting to. He glances at me, his eyes catching the reflection of the grey sky, and says most people don't see beauty in the things that hide the sun. I tell him maybe that's why they need it, to remember what light feels like. He laughs quietly, a sound that feels like warmth breaking through the cold. We fall into silence again, the quiet no longer uncomfortable. The car hums beneath us, steady and sure, the world moving past in shades of silver and green. I can feel the edges of exhaustion, not unpleasant, just soft, creeping in. The music carries me further inward, each note dissolving into the rhythm of the rain. When he finally turns onto my street, I almost wish the drive would last longer. The porch light glows faintly through the mist, a small, warm beacon. He stops the car, the engine idling quietly. The silence stretches for a heartbeat before he turns to me, his eyes darker now, the colour muted by shadow. He tells me I should be more careful. His voice is quiet, but there's something beneath it, a thread of warning woven into gentleness. I nod, not sure what he means, but understanding all the same. The moment hangs between us, fragile, and then he exhales softly, turning back to the wheel. The car rolls forward a few feet, gravel crunching under the tyres, and comes to a stop again. I thank him, the words small but sincere. He nods once, says goodnight, his voice barely above a whisper. When I step out, the mist wraps around me like breath. The door closes with a soft click, and the car glides away, its taillights fading into the fog until they disappear completely. The sound of rain returns, steady and endless, filling the silence he leaves behind. The mist lingers long after the sound of the car fades, a faint silver haze that clings to the trees and drifts across the yard. I stand there for a moment, not because I need to, but because the air feels different, as if it still holds the echo of him. The world seems softer now, blurred around the edges, the streetlights glowing like distant moons. When I finally turn toward the house, the porch light spills across the wet steps, catching the rain in slow, glimmering arcs. My hand finds the doorknob, cool against my skin, and I push it open quietly, stepping into the familiar hum of home. The house smells of coffee and the faint trace of smoke from the fireplace, a comfort older than thought. The sound of the television drifts from the living room, low voices from some evening show mixed with the quiet creak of my father's chair. I tell him I'm home, my voice soft, and he answers without turning from the screen. The same steady tone he always uses, half distracted but present in his own way. It's enough. The normalcy of it settles me, grounding the day back into something that resembles routine. I hang my jacket by the door, its damp weight pulling slightly against the hook, and climb the stairs, my footsteps careful, the house echoing softly beneath each one. Upstairs, my room waits the way it always does. Still, dim, quietly familiar. I switch on the lamp by the bed, the warm light spilling across the floorboards, and catching on the reflection of raindrops clinging to the window. My books are stacked in uneven piles, my notebook open where I left it, a few lines of writing trailing off mid-sentence. I sit on the edge of the bed, my hands resting loosely in my lap, and for the first time since I got out of the car, I let myself breathe. The silence is thick, the kind that fills the space between thoughts, the kind that asks you to listen to it. My mind replays everything, not as events but as impressions. The sound of his voice, low and certain, the way his eyes seem to look through rather than at me, the soft rhythm of rain on the car roof, the feel of air just before he spoke. Each detail feels too sharp, too vivid, as if my memory is trying to preserve something it knows will fade. I tell myself I'm being ridiculous, that he's just a person, but the thought doesn't hold. Nothing about him feels ordinary. The way he moves, the way he speaks, it's as though he's always half outside of time, watching rather than existing in it. I stand and cross to the window. Outside, the rain has slowed again, falling in thin streaks that catch the light from the street. The forest beyond is wrapped in fog, a faint shimmer where the moon should be hidden. The air on the glass is cold beneath my fingertips. Somewhere out there, I imagine him moving through the night as easily as he drives through the rain, quiet, precise, a part of the darkness that never quite touches him. The thought is both comforting and unsettling, and I can't decide which it should be. I change into soft clothes, the fabric warm against my skin, and brush out my hair in long, slow strokes until it settles against my shoulders. The mirror reflects the lamplight, turning the room golden for a heartbeat. My reflection looks back at me with a kind of dazed calm, as if she's waiting for the next part of a story that hasn't been told yet. When I finally lie down, the sheets are cool, and the sound of rain fills the space around me again, steady and constant. Sleep doesn't come quickly, but the world drifts at the edges. My thoughts move like the tide, slow and inevitable, circling back to him over and over. The car ride, the nurse's office, the cafeteria, the way his voice changed when he said I should be careful. It all folds together until I can't tell where one memory ends and the next begins. I close my eyes and let the rhythm of the rain carry the images away. One by one, somewhere between waking and sleep, I see flashes of light, trees, fog, the shimmer of water, the faint outline of a face that looks like his but not quite. In the dream, he's standing a few feet away, his expression unreadable, his voice calling my name from a place I can't reach. I try to move toward him, but the ground feels fluid, the air too thick to breathe. When I finally get close enough to touch him, the world folds inward and vanishes into dark. When I wake, the light filtering through the curtains is thin and grey, the kind of light that belongs to mornings after long rain. My body feels heavy but rested. The smell of coffee drifts faintly from downstairs, and I hear the sound of my father's boots against the tile. I dress slowly, the motions automatic, and catch sight of myself in the mirror again. My skin is pale, my eyes darker than usual, but there's a softness to them, as though sleep left something behind. Downstairs, the kitchen feels warm and familiar. My father looks up from the newspaper when I enter, his expression calm, his smile small but real. He asks if I'm feeling better, if I've recovered from yesterday's fainting spell, and I tell him I have, though the memory still feels too vivid to belong to something that's simple. He nods, satisfied, and returns to his coffee, the steam curling into the air between us. The drive to school is quiet. The rain has stopped, but the sky is still heavy with clouds, the world damp and shining. The wipers move across the windshield every few seconds, more out of habit than necessity. The trees on either side of the road are dark with moisture, their leaves glinting in the weak light. The world feels new, but not quite clean. When I pull into the parking lot, the sound of gravel under the tires feels louder than it should. Students move between cars, their jackets pulled close, their voices carried away by the wind. I glance toward the far end of the lot, out of instinct more than thought, and the sight catches me. The silver car is there again, gleaming even under the dull sky. He's standing beside it, leaning casually against the door, his posture easy but watchful. For a moment, I hesitate. The air feels different when he's near, thicker, charged with something I can't name. He turns his head slightly, his gaze finding mine across the distance, and it feels as though the space between us collapses into silence. I step out of the truck, my boots sinking slightly into the wet ground. The cold air bites at my skin, but I barely feel it. I walk toward him slowly, not because I want to, but because the idea of not moving feels impossible. His eyes follow me, unreadable as ever, his expression calm but somehow more alive than it should be. When I reach him, he smiles faintly, the kind of smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes but still softens his face. He asks how I'm feeling, his voice smooth, unhurried. I tell him I'm fine, and he nods once, his gaze lingering as though he doesn't believe me but won't argue. We fall into step together, the sound of our shoes against the wet pavement, the only rhythm in the air. He asks if I'm going to the beach this weekend. His tone casual but with a trace of curiosity that doesn't sound like small talk. I tell him yes, that Jessica and the others are planning it, and he gives a short laugh, saying something about hoping the weather cooperates for once. I smile, and the moment stretches quietly between us, filled with the sound of rain beginning again in fine silvery threads. The day unfolds with an odd stillness. Every class feels slower, every sound slightly muted, as though the world is holding its breath. I catch him watching me more than once, and each time he looks away just a moment too late. The air between us feels fragile, like glass, beautiful, delicate, and dangerous to touch. When the final bell rings, the sky has deepened into a soft, colourless dusk. The parking lot gleams with wet light. I see him by his car again, waiting without seeming to. The mist curls around him like it belongs there. I tell myself I should go straight home, that it's safer not to, but my feet don't listen. I cross the lot, the rain soft against my face, and when I reach him he opens the car door and asks if I want a ride. The world feels too quiet to say no. The air inside the car feels different. The moment I step in, cooler somehow, carrying that faint trace of leather and something sharper, something I've come to recognize as him. The door closes with a muted click, sealing us into a quiet space that feels almost separate from the rest of the world. The rain is gentle now, a fine mist tapping against the windshield, and the low hum of the engine blends perfectly with the soft notes of music playing from somewhere deep within the car. Neither of us speaks at first, and the silence doesn't feel awkward. It feels intentional, like he's letting the quiet settle so that whatever is left unsaid can breathe. The trees outside flicker in and out of focus as we move through them, their branches bending under the weight of the rain. Every so often the road curves, and I can feel the faint pull of gravity shift through the car, smooth and controlled. It's strange how safe I feel here, sitting beside someone who keeps reminding me in small, deliberate ways that I shouldn't. Finally, he asks if I faint often. His voice is soft, almost teasing, but there's a shadow of concern beneath it, that he doesn't try to hide. I tell him no, that it was a one-time thing, that the smell of blood just caught me off guard. The road narrows, lined with tall evergreens that rise like black columns into the fog. The mist thickens until the world outside the headlights is just a soft blur of light and movement. I rest my hand on the edge of the seat, my fingers tracing the smooth stitching of the leather. The rhythm of the wipers is slow and steady, marking time like a heartbeat. For a long stretch we don't speak again, and the silence fills with the sound of rain and the soft echo of the piano. It feels less like a car ride and more like drifting through a dream that hasn't decided how it ends. When he finally speaks again, his voice is quieter, careful, the words sliding through the air like something he's been weighing. He tells me I should be more careful, that I don't always seem to realize when I'm walking into danger. I start to protest, but he interrupts, not sharply, just firmly enough to make me stop. He says there are things in this world that don't behave the way they should, things that can't always be understood by reason or instinct, and that sometimes curiosity isn't bravery, it's just another kind of risk. His tone is calm, but each word feels like a ripple through still water, something small carrying the weight of something much larger beneath it. I ask him if he's talking about himself. He doesn't answer right away. His hands stay steady on the wheel, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Then finally he says that maybe he is. The rain thickens suddenly, drumming harder against the windshield, the world outside disappearing into grey. For a moment it feels like we're driving through nothing at all, two figures suspended in sound and motion. He tells me I don't understand yet, that it would be better if I didn't try to. I tell him I can't help it. The silence that follows feels heavy but not empty. I can feel him glance at me again, and when he speaks, it's barely above a whisper. He says that sometimes the thing you want to know most is the one thing you're not meant to. His voice holds no anger, only quiet resignation, like someone remembering a truth they've lived too many times to doubt. I don't know what to say, so I don't. I just watch the way the rain catches the light, turning the windows into sheets of liquid silver, and let the rhythm of his voice echo in my mind long after he stopped speaking. The drive ends too soon. The outline of my house appears through the mist, the familiar shape of the porch light glowing softly in the dark. He slows the car to a stop, the engine idling quietly as the rain continues its steady whisper. For a few seconds, neither of us moves. The air inside the car feels thick, the quiet between us charged with everything we haven't said. He turns to me then, and his eyes meet mine. They're darker now, deeper somehow, and the sight of them sends a strange calm through me, the kind that feels both safe and dangerous at once. He tells me to be careful again, but this time the words sound different. Not just advice, but warning, as though he's speaking from somewhere far older than either of us. His voice is soft but certain, every syllable deliberate. I nod slowly, promising without really knowing what I'm agreeing to. The corners of his mouth lift, but the smile doesn't reach his eyes. He says he'll see me soon, and for a heartbeat, I think he means it in a way that stretches beyond the next day. I reach for the handle, and the cold air rushes in as I open the door. The sound of rain fills the space between us again. I step out, closing the door carefully behind me, and he waits just long enough for me to reach the porch before the car moves forward, gliding away into the mist, until the sound of the engine disappears completely. The night settles around me, the rain soft against my hair, the air cool and clean. I stand there for a moment, listening to the quiet, the forest breathing beyond the yard, the sound of distant water moving through the trees. Inside, the house is dark, the warmth of it settling over me like a blanket. I move through the stillness on instinct, each step slow, deliberate. Upstairs, I leave the light off and go straight to the window, watching the rain trace new paths down the glass. The street beyond is empty now, but I can still feel him there somehow, like an imprint left behind in the air. The memory of his voice lingers, not in words but in the way it felt, a sound that seems to live in the spaces between thoughts. I sit on the edge of the bed and breathe, slow and deep, letting the rhythm of the rain match my heartbeat. My mind drifts, replaying every detail of the day until it becomes a blur of sound and light and sensation. The faint trace of his scent still clings to my sleeve, clean and sharp, like the cold edge of morning air. I close my eyes and lean back slowly, the mattress creaking softly beneath me, the world narrowing to the warmth of the blanket and the whisper of rain outside. The music from earlier lingers in my head, Clair de Lune, delicate and endless, as if the night has learned its melody. My thoughts slow until they're just fragments of images. The curve of his smile, the sound of his laughter, the echo of warning wrapped in something I can't name. Everything softens, fades, dissolves into quiet. The rain becomes a lullaby, steady and gentle, washing the day clean of questions. As sleep pulls me under, the last thing I remember is the feeling of motion, the car gliding through mist, the world holding its breath, his voice somewhere behind the sound of the rain. The dream comes quietly, without colour or form, only the sense of being watched over by something vast and still. And in that quiet, the story settles. The rain falls, the world sleeps, and I drift with it into the calm beyond thought.